let me start with the topic. Who here hasn't experienced the difficulty or the pain or the fuck ups which comes with the change? Raise your hands. Oof, okay. I was worried because if you would be, very comfortable, I would just tell you to grab a beer and wait outside. So it's called it Death Plan. We are all here to go through the difficulties, and it's not a question if there are difficulties, it's more a question why. And we have very great speakers here who will help us uncover it. And before that, we will also not just go through the fuck ups, but we will try to provide solution, easy takeaways. So when you will be leaving today, you will hopefully have something which you can take and implement in your team immediately. And where is my manners? I didn't introduce myself, but Marianne did a little bit. And Katka, I'm from Smitio. Most of you, I hope, might know this part of me because I'm usually behind comfort of my screen. I'm usually moderating online panels, podcasts, and so on. At Smitio, we streamline, the bridge. We try to create the bridge between the talents and the technology. And we don't want to be just a recruitment partner, but we want to be community builder. We believe that in the community there is a power, and that's why we invest lots of money and effort in creating engaging content. We had Smitil the podcasts. You can check us on the QR code. I hope that my ego will be pleased tonight once I come back to my hotel room and I will find lots of new followers because we do lots of funnel talks, we do best practices. It's all about knowledge sharing. It's all about inspiration. Yeah, great. I'm happy to see the phones. Perfect. Thank you. And we will be happy if you follow us as well. As Marianne said, that, we are engaging together because we believe in the community as well. Well, enough about me. I have very valuable guests here today. I will take it from the left side. Vladimir, he's the CIO of Raiffeisen Bank. Thank you, by the way, for let us stay here in your place. Beautiful view. So we are very happy that you are here, and thank you for being here to share with us what you have been through. I know there has been lots of changes recently, and I will give you soon also a word. So thank you and welcome, Vladimir. Please clap your hands for him. We have Jiří from Bloomreach, VP of Engineering. Jiří will have a lot to say about his background as well. He's one of the Silicon Valley guys. So thank you so much, Jiří, for coming and being here with us. Cool. I'm very happy that we have a lady in the panel. I know it doesn't happen often in engineering leaders community. So welcome Enel Idris from Price FX. She is a director of business transformation. Enel, thank you. And do I have to introduce Marianne? I guess no. Perfect. We want to make this conversation, this discussion, this evening as engaging as possible. We want to make it interactive and we want to make it relevant to your topics. So please join Slido and we will be happy if you will also, contribute in our polls, answer some questions to that. And before you do answer in Slido, I will ask my panelists. Blaja, can you start? Oh, you don't have a mic. All right. Yeah. Can you give before you don't have to, don't worry, you're the person. When it comes to change, you have lots of experience, professional background. Can you give the audience a little bit of the context? So when you answer later, they know where you are coming from. What changes have you experienced in your career, in which positions, and, what can you tell us about it?
I'm 64. So we could spend a lot of time discussing the decision. But I think I can mention the last one, which also was, let's say, the biggest and more difficult one. And some of you might know that recently they acquired Legovan, which was huge projects. So I think most of my comments will be somewhat related to this change, because this was about the integration of not only a team, uh, in my case IT, to verify and also to integrate the part of the infrastructure, part of the applications related to location cells, and the acquisition of it, integration costs for me also at 20 million euros, which somehow also defines the size of it. So I can talk of the further changes back in single, which is really relevant, and you can see and all the effects in the programs and the fuck ups, which you can imagine.
Thank you so much, Jirka. You have experienced lots of changes as well in your career in many different companies. With
Yeah, so maybe first of all, question from me to the audience. So how many of you, please raise your hand if you ever have or know companies on microsystems? So it's better than I expected. But more or less, I started at Sun roughly 25 years ago. And, it was through NetWiz's acquisition. NetWiz was the first startup in the Czech Republic back then at the end of 90s. And the Sun Microsystems R&D Center in Prague was based on the foundations of this acquisition. So I started there a few weeks after the acquisition. And, I was at Sun in the time when the company was kind of printing money. On the top, he had like 40,000 people, revenue $15 billion. And back then, we were a bigger icon than, for example, Apple or Google is now. It was a really iconic company. We developed and kind of created Java, cloud computing, NFS. We had prototypes of things like iPad, etc., etc. So I was there during this phase where, we were acquiring companies like crazy. I was part of it too, which again, some of the change management we are going to be discussing is coming from. But then after the dot-com boom, I would say the exact opposite happened. It was kind of the Nokia effect. And the company really started to struggle. And it struggled that way that, again, a lot of change management, it was really interesting to observe that, for example, in the beginning, the management was like, it's not that problem, just recovery. Then it's the customer, they just don't understand how cool we are. And, later then where we were, almost running out of money, it started with a lot of changes, including, GTM, including another acquisitions, including, of course, layoffs every quarter, including reorganizations. Nothing did work out. And more or less the company disappeared and was then acquired by Coreco. And, most of the career I had there, I was in a position of senior manager, having people here in Europe and in the US. Then I spent roughly 5 years with AG Technologies, which is a company originally from here, from the Czech Republic, from Brno, and I think that is the only one, probably so far, the only company from Central Europe which made it to IPO. Unfortunately, probably the last one so far. So I was there in the beginning on a position of a director, and one of my key roles was to prepare for the IPO through the product diversification of the company. Some of it was organically, we were developing that in-house. Some of it was through acquisition. So then I had teams reporting to me in Israel, Amsterdam, US, here, all over the place. And then, of course, after the IPO, it was another big change. Since then, the founders and the top management just take their millions of dollars and they were done. So we got then, the professional management, and also, you have the drill of quarterly results. So became big change management for the company. Then I spent roughly 10 years with Good Data, again company with roots from Silicon Valley, founded by the guy who originally founded NetBeans, one from the innovators in BI. And, my vision was in the beginning more or less to work on the changes in the company from startup to kind of scale up. And then I would say in the second half of my career then I was responsible for the transformation, like development, new generation of products which are cloud native, including on-prem products. And the last almost 1 year and Bloomreach. Bloomreach is again originally from Silicon Valley. The original founders came from Google 15 years old company. Right now we have roughly 1,000 people worldwide, revenue over 200 millions. Tatra Banka is one from our customers. And I'm responsible for the part of the business which originally got to that company through acquisition of Exponia, which was a startup in Bratislava. And right now, the product which is called Movement is the most profitable product of the company. Yes.
And Vladimir, you were worried that you are too old to gain all your experience, right? And then you just took over. Wow, I think the panelists are full of that. Yes.
You just have one comment and maybe one question for the audience as well. Tatra Banka, just some explanation. This is our sister company in Slovakia, but they just still keep on the original invent of Tatra Banka, which is very bold from the 19th century. The question is, does anyone of you ever heard about a company called Digital Equipment? No? This is exactly the same story, like some microsystems I worked for this company. At the time in 90s, this was one of the most technological accounts company in the world. After that, it's only acquired by Compaq, which I know some free might know as well. This was a company doing just a PCs. It is a PCs, and this is a huge frustration for us. And at the end of the day, everything ended up in the hill token. So same story. So.
Okay, thank you so much. And what is your experience with change?
Oh, great. Glad I'm here. My experience, I will primarily focus on providing some examples from my past two work experiences. One is ExxonMobil, huge company, oil company, tens thousands of employees. And we went through here in Prague at the shared service center through a big migration when basically the headquarters decided to move a majority of back office functions to India. So I'll be talking a little bit more about that, how that went. And of course, the last one is Price FX, where I work now, pricing software company, started as a startup, truly with three co-founders in a garage in Germany. And we grew up now to almost 600 people. And that's just, I would say, in the last 13, 14 years that they're on the market.
Perfect. Thank you so much. You might be wondering because, oil and gas, it's completely different than IT, but I believe there are lots of things which applied in one industry can be easily applied for IT as well because change is less technical. It's more about people and about communication. So I believe that the experience which you have outside the IT bubble might actually bring very good perspective. So thank you so much. Can you pass the mic to Marianne, please? But don't leave it with him for so long.
Hopefully works. Does not. Thank you. So coming back to the notion of the change, I will think, and thank you for introductions. I will try to be a little bit controversial, as you know me. So to me, when I talk about the change, I see opportunity because many people will fuck it up, while I hopefully will not. Of course, I take my bets on what needs to be changed and how. But if you make the change right and you succeed in making changes successful at, let's say, 80% of the time, while others will just go 50-50, you will grow like hell. And that's my experience. So in my opinion, change, if you embrace change, something as a constant thing and continuous part of your life, that's something what moves you forward. That's something what moved me forward myself, meaning moving from a simple programmer to a developer to a principal architect in Silicon Valley to someone who hopefully was leading rightfully well dozens of almost 100 different teams up to basically getting my own couple of startups companies and making sure that I'm not destroying everything throughout the change as much as I did before. So that's the way how I embrace change, in my opinion.
Perfect. When I mentioned before that it's more about people and communication, every change has impact and it does affect people. So, Vladimir, could you tell me, you have been through so many acquisitions. It wasn't just the Equabank, which you mentioned, but lots of acquisitions fail and you have been doing many of them parallel. And can you summarize what impact it had on your people?
If you survive, then I'm not choose. In case of we did not only acquire, but before that, or but at least at the same time, we did acquisition of one Skype and even before that, we acquired portfolio of the customers from ING. And frankly speaking, once these things are over, then people are dependent on the result. And this is fact. And I have to say that, especially in case of Echo, I was a bit afraid whether some of our people will leave the company after the project. I mean, I was not so much afraid with the very, I mean, in the middle of the project, at least that in our case, but it didn't happen. Actually. And my fluctuations are 3% or something. It's something basically. And yeah, and some of them actually started to be bored. I mean, doing all this regular business as usual, how was it called? This same with me. Because we have mother companies, so once we completed the project, then I got some stuff from being.
So are you expecting any new acquisition coming up soon?
There is nothing.
Yes.
So this could.
I have been actually having your colleagues on podcast from Raiffeisen Bank. Can check it out on Smithy.org. And they have been talking about acquisitions of all. And they were saying that actually from IT perspective, it's a challenge. It always brings me tech stack and they are always excited for it. And actually that's true. But they also mentioned that there has been troubles not for internal employees of Raiffeisen Bank, but sometimes you didn't manage it quite well with the people which you acquired. That it was not always so successful because you, for example, couldn't communicate, you couldn't reach out to them yet. But you have been cooking the change, for a while, but it wasn't official. Can you share more about that?
I think sure. That is something. I mean, this was my nightmare, frankly speaking. Because I mean, us as Raiffeisen and Ecobank, these are two different, very different companies. Not only because of the size, but because of the culture. This was a big conflict of the countries, and I, openly speaking, comment those guys, at least within IT, but not enough from IT, that are pissed off that we are acquired by such a bank like us. Due to some reason which I do not understand, there's some hobby that they'll be acquired by another financial investor. Everybody knew in acquired that they are for sale because this was investment project. And my nightmare was that they had perfect system for discussions, but there was no documentation. This was their product, so this was on in the hands of the people. And if they would be, something would be done. So this was my nightmare, and there is not universal simple recipe how to fix that. And at the end of the day, I mean, we did such a simple fix that we were to better through, but then to make authority about those topics and all by that person. So, and yes, there were some cases like that. People came at us, how much do you pay me to steal you? No, I'm serious. This is what I was giving. And just to make it short, for instance, they had a callback system. They have FlexCube from Oracle, some very obsolete version, which was the first stable. And they were in the middle of the upgrading of Flex. But as the people are leading, I didn't have enough people to actually continue with the upgrade and finish it, so I had to stop it in the middle of that acquisition, which was a bit counterintuitive decision, but I had no choice. And at the end of the day, I had only one lady actually who was. You can find the people for Flex such about I really somebody who knows all these businesses over there. And I ended up with one lady with 2 kids and COVID and all this stuff. So this was all my knowledge.
I believe you. Yuri, can you share as well some impact? We will talk about solution as the next question, but just like what happened during the changes to people?
Can I read it? Yeah. Okay, sure. So I have probably I can dedicate a good segue, to one acquisition which I wanted to mention. And to give you a context, I will not name the company, but we have acquired the company Agile. And it was quite interesting setup. The company had like roughly 100 people, pretty good product, and pretty profitable. But what was quite unique, they didn't have an external investor, so more or less they were able to bootstrap it. And also the founders founded that company at school. So in reality, it means that they have never worked for any other company and they never had a boss. So then when we acquired them, and I'd like to follow up on you, we realize that there is a complete mismatch in cultures. And what was the paradox? We, as much bigger company, were much more agile and pragmatic than the company we acquired in Germany, since more or less, they didn't have stakeholders. They were profitable. So they didn't care about effectivity. It was more like a social club. And of course, when they got integrated into our company, of course, there was a big friction that, okay, at the boss, I don't know what to do with a boss right there. At the boss, I didn't need a boss. And also, believe it or not, it was for them also quite difficult that they had to report to someone in Eastern Europe. It was also quite awkward for them. So more or less for 1 year, there was such a struggle. And then at the end of the day, what was happening is that, the management of our company decided, it's over, we will shut it down. Totally. The good thing was that it was on-premise software. You wouldn't do it at SaaS, but, on-premise software, it will still work. It used to get cities, so it's still gonna work, no matter if the company exists or not. So we did shut it down. And when talking about it, I'd say there are two things which are good to remember. One is that, of course, it's a big emotional effect. You are laying over other people. But at the end of the day, when we transferred everything back to the Czech Republic without them, we realized that we are able to run more or less the same business with like 20 people in the Czech Republic for a fraction of the price. So it was quite a good deal for the company. But also, I would like to put on the table one story which happened there, and if someone told me that it can happen, I wouldn't believe it. Some of the developers, they were like immigrants from Turkey. And when they realized that, okay, we are shutting down the company, tomorrow you don't need to show up, then they were running with knives in the ovens.
Oh my God, really? Ooh. So yeah. Okay, I will not give now mic to the others with the same question, but I would like to ask you, Marianne. When the team goes through the changes, let's talk now about the practical solutions. You have plenty. When you have team which goes through change, what solution you have to maintain the feeling, the sense of belonging to the company?
Right. Well, I do have some sort of a template of 18 points to make some sort of a larger change happen, so I don't forget about anything crucial.
You are.
We will not participate here. Nevertheless, I will turn it from other way around, which is sometimes what I see is that making the large change path through is not only about changing the process, but it's also about changing people's mindset about part of the process and of the journey. And then that's something that is very often neglected. So it ends up by, hey, this is the new documentation, how you work, but nobody follows that, meaning the adoption is going up. So that's something that I would say hate seeing. And it reminds me of a story. So practically, now I'm not paying a company, a larger company of thousand plus people, 3.5 billion revenue per year, and moving from some sort of a project management mindset to product management mindset. And it's again not only about explaining people how the product managers work, but also making sure that they will embrace the new culture. And we are to some degree, which is funny, saying publicly that it's not for everyone. You know what I mean? Meaning there will be some people who might not end up being compatible with the new setting and the new ambitions. Of course, you are entitled and privileged to give all the people the opportunity to grow and to get there. Nevertheless, if it's not feasible, then we are good. So if something to remember which is worth it is to say it's not about making big changes happen by changing the process and the documentation, but also thinking of the adoption and people themselves, meaning changing the mindset of these people. So that's something that I would put on top of on my list.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And now, when there are difficulties, challenging changes happening, such as layoffs or, things what gentlemen mentioned, what is your personal approach and communication? So I know in your position, you are actually kind of like a go-to person when there is issue with the change. So what do you advise in terms of communication with the team about that?
I think it's really okay. It's really important the timing and the openness. What I've learned throughout the career is people can handle tough news, people can handle change, but they don't feel comfortable when something feels shady, something is not really transparent. So really emphasizing more why is the change happening. Of course, you need to adapt it to different people because, as Marianne said, you have different people on the team. You have people who will always be a little grumpy and just not accepting and always judging that everything sucks. Then you will have some that are really ambitious and they will always jump on kind of doing more. And yes, I want to volunteer. I want to do that. So really adjusting the message to the different people that you have on the team so that you really speak their language. So even as a leader, sometimes I feel that when we step down a little bit from kind of the position that I'm in a certain org chart, but I really talk to the person like of here and just explain and say, hey, look, I look at this change this way. These are the reasons why I see it as a beneficial. They're more likely to understand and see the difference. For example, we had a leadership change in price spikes in IT department, and so there were few people that were quite, let's say, resistant, okay with that. There's natural flow, but there was one that was kind of really scared and almost, on the out of the door. And I had the challenge. It's just kind of, hey, you have to save him. And so I spoke with him. I told him, look, I understand you lost a big champion. You lost someone that really supported you in the growth, gave you amazing projects to work on, all that. But maybe you didn't experience something else from the leader. Maybe each leader is different. They have different management style. Just try it. You can always give up, but giving up without trying, seeing what the new may look like, it's pity. And so really just kind of bringing it a little bit down to people helps.
Who do you think should be the one who communicates mainly? Like, who should be the one telling those things?
I mean, ideally the you're in the team. Or if there is a person that's close from the HR department, then definitely the business partner kind of trying to reach out them and talk to them. But yeah, it really depends on the setup of the company. In our case, it's more that the leaders are really in the weeds with the team.
Okay, thank you so much. Jiří, change fatigue. There is a term now when you're in an environment, everything is changing around us all the time. And when you go through it at personal life, you go through it at work, it's a lot of stress for people. What as a leader, what's the one single thing you could do every day to support your people, to avoid that?
I would say you need to be, I'd say it's more things, sorry, but I think that you need to be honest with that. I think that you shouldn't promise them, okay, one day's transition or whatever is over, it will be like back in the old good days. It's not gonna be that way. The second thing which I think you should avoid is to be like the kind of leader that, okay, the crazy guys on the top, they come up with another, crazy thing. People are just to do with it. I would say for the leader, usually it's the beginning of the end, since you are becoming to be part of the program. And the last thing, I think it's you a little bit mentioned it too. I think that the best way for you to be present for that there. So if you have offices, and doesn't matter if you have five people or 50 people or 500 people reporting to you, you should try to make yourself, I would say, informally available. Try to be available, try to make yourself to be met in the hallway and they can chat with you. Try to be, available at the coffee machine or, invite them for informal, lunch or beer. So you really get the vibe and they can talk to you.
I can only confirm that coming back to the Psycho project, because at the end of the day, I began employee of Oqua as a COO. Naturally, Mondays, Fridays, I was sitting typically in Erequat, sitting together with the people in the open space. Exactly, just to be available for them in the middle of the week or those here, also commuting with pancreas and this work, and I think this is possible not to lose those people either.
That's amazing. I'm glad that you have the word because I had pull-up question for you as well. You have been through so many changes that kind of like transformation is your new business as usual, you know. And how do you build the resilience in the people? What kind of strategies you had? Who is helping you? Is your HR involved in that? Or, how did you do it?
I mean, first of all, resilience is there always. But in the let's say normal situation, it's somehow sleeping or how to say in English, and you have to wake it up if you need. And I think you have to be authentic. Someone mentioned that. And first of all, you have to explain why and why you are doing this change, which in our case, like in corporation, might be difficult sometimes because you can say this is engineer, but those guys somewhere did came to some brilliant ideas and have to do it. You have to somehow translate this into something more meaningful. And if this is meaningful, then people can follow this. And I can give you an example even from here. It's because you can, for instance, in cloud, this is a topic, this is the topic, and my KPI is how many applications I have in cloud, which to some extent makes sense, but maybe this is not the best API for this. So I had to translate this API to something probably for my people. So first of all, this is just my KPI, not the KPI for my people. I was trying to explain that I mean, cloud is inevitable. We can learn something, and let's try to find some application which will make sense to go to the cloud because of some reasons. It's difficult, but it's how manageable. The same stuff of one comes with Agile. So Agile became like a political project in our mother company. So again, we had to find some meaningful way how to go there because I mean, Agile is fine, it's common sense. But you have to formulate it right, and people want to do something which is meaningful. And if they trust or believe it, then that's where it is that this is the issue.
Yeah. Thank you. And I actually have another question for you, but before that, I'm going to create a bridge. You remember at the beginning, I was telling you do lots of inspirational content. We actually have done 2 discussions about codification in Private Bank recently. It was very insightful, full of fuck-ups, full of practical solutions, and it's on our YouTube channel, Katkazis Media. So, it's in Czech. Sorry for the English speakers, but you can check it out because it also have lots of tips which comes up with the change. But you shake the hand, when I ask you if you involve HR, I couldn't notice that you were like, no.
I
Why?
wanted to say or stress that this is our job as a managers, and nobody else can do it for us. HR for me is an expert organization which could provide you certain tools or advice, but this is my job. Some people simply don't understand that.
Okay, thank you. So let's move a little bit forward. I would like to involve you again in the audience. What were actually for the change misstep to forgot that we wanted to be politically correct. So anyway, if you can answer us the question as well as an audience, and then I had the question about what was the biggest cock up and what do you learn from that for the panelists. So Marianne.
Just if I can say, if you move away from the slide, it will disappear from all the slide.
Great, thank you so much. So I have to wait now then. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry.
If you want the answers.
Yeah. Sorry for that. As you can see, I don't read my slide very open. So. Okay, so anyway, I don't have to change the slides. You can type and the panelists can answer. I know there have been probably a lot of fuck ups, as every change brings lots of things to learn from. So, Iri, if I ask you for the one thing which was, what comes first to your mind, and what did you learn from it?
Sure. So I have an example uh, I was leading a transformation, and just a little bit of context. Usually, when you're a startup, uh, it's usually founded by a few people who are really brilliant, but very often, they don't scale. So usually, when the company is growing, usually it's no longer for them since they are mostly like, the crazy geniuses, and then they quit and, start another startup, etc. But in some cases, for example, they are somehow unique. For example, they are the only one who knows, some of the core technology, core algorithm, whatever. They usually stay in the company since they have big leverage. More or less, they can do whatever they want since nobody's gonna fire. So I had such a guy in the company, and I was trying a lot of things. We were trying to convince him to rewrite it to something a little bit more open and scalable. And I said, no, we don't think much of this, so not possible. So then we were trying to give him more people around having something there was they are able to that. And he was really becoming a bottleneck for everything. Changes of processes, scaling, velocity. Since again, more or less everything, if you have a core component in the product, more or less, there is no way around it. So then it took about 2 years for me, and it was really fuck up, that I created like a SWAT team on the side, and I said, guys, try to rewrite. Without him, just try to do the same thing, but in something, in Kotlin or something which, he wouldn't present understand. And he said, they all appear, they are this mission at possibly. And they did it in a few months. And then after a few months, it was even in the production. And then the engineering, the atmosphere, everything is totally changed. So more or less for me, like the takeaway is that, sometimes you don't need to change the status quo. And usually when there is, this guy had this kind of like a title or, leverage since I joined the company. He was that much longer than I was. But I would say for me, one from the takeaways is that, really sometimes the bottlenecks are the people and we need to find the best possible help move them to the position. And sometimes, the atmosphere that they are irreplaceable is just the perception.
And now, what is your nightmare when you look back?
Most probably, once when we had a situation where we needed to implement a software to help our social delivery services, the team to really kind of be more efficient in how they implement our software at our customers. And they had their portions of work across multiple systems, not consistent, reporting difficult. And when we kind of try to understand the numbers of the profitability, okay, so how much do we cost? So that we are able to really optimize our offering, it was difficult. And it was a big project, all eyes on it. Let's do it, budget separated, good. Um, However, the biggest kind of fail was at the very, very start, because what sometimes happens is leaders just take it, okay, let's just show that we can do it, and they just do it themselves without including others. And so what it means is, for example, they haven't talked to finance team to understand what processes are impacted by it or what does it influence. They haven't talked to engineering teams. They haven't talked to other teams. Yeah, just you can name all of them throughout the company. And if you don't map the processes, which we just talked with the bridge, actually, Verified has a good example. If you don't map it at the very beginning, you will end up missing out big things. You will just not be able to move. And basically, from that moment, at the same time, it was like a top secret. Like, let's not say it. We will just, prepare everything. Even the discovery of the software solution that we are looking at was rushed. Just okay, yeah, few demos, good. We buy this. But then, of course, you realize, oh, they can't do this. We wanted to report on the time so that people can log their time, how much they spent on fixing a different ticket. That's it. Oh, they can't do that. Or they don't integrate with those. Oh, and you just go on and on and on and on. And because it was kind of presented as a small scale or kind of secret project, of course, these things, the missteps happen very early. And then it came to our table, the business transformation team, basically asking for help. Like, okay, this is not going well. We need your help. Let's fix it. And it's very difficult to undo things when they happen. So for us, it was really, really difficult. We were just not able to move because when we realized that the discovery was rushed, the solution is not addressing the things. We talked about processes that were not even documented. So we said that it will fix something, but when we looked at, okay, where is it described so that we understand which part of the process you're fixing with the solution? Oh, we don't have it documented. And so you cannot just go on. So I would say really not don't underestimate the preparation. Don't rush it. Just really do your homework before. I would say, kind of analogy. Djokovic wouldn't win most of the races if he wouldn't really train hard, be dedicated, and really do his diligent work. So it's the same thing here. Just yeah, really do the foundation, so that's later on you can actually run faster and yeah.
Because I can imagine that, it's one thing to fix it in terms of processes and the manuals and, but also the impact it has on the people who are already involved is you can't take it back. The people are already in it, fed up, they see it fails, and now you need them to keep pushing and go through it. So that,
Exactly. And last piece to that is even if this happens, well, afterwards, when you kind of reflect on it, address it. Address it within the company. Say this was a fail because of these things, and we'll just learn from it. Because if you don't do it, it just sets precedent, and people kind of get, oh well, we had this failed project and no one did anything. Okay, fine, no one fired. Okay, I'll just do something to do, and that's fine. I'll probably did.
Vladimir, what's your biggest regret when you look back to, the changes?
It was mentioned here how communication is important. There is never enough communication. And I have one beautiful example how your communication should not be done. And many years ago, I worked at T-Mobile. When they were hunting me and we were doing some interviews, they somehow forgot to tell me that like 30% of my future organization is going to be outsourced. So I joined the company. And then after some time, I realized that this is the case, but nobody told these people who were supposed to be outsourced that this is the case, even though this was a kind of public secret. And I think at the time, we went due diligence was ongoing. So we somehow delivered the project, and at the end, this was a big event, and many managers came from Germany, and some journalists and were signing the contract, and then someone had an idea that we should thank for these employees who are at that time away from single duty systems. So we went down to the big hall to our building it in Australia where like 6 people were supposed to sit and listen to the thanks, but there were like 3 of them. And this was the message, and this was funny, not for me very much, because I mean, ask where those people are, it's just, I don't know. And there were like 16 managers from Czech, T-Mobile, Germany, and Bulgaria. Part of them were sitting on this podium, and part of them were like a audience, and they just did all these speeches, and I go. And those 2 guys probably they didn't read the emails or messages, or somebody forgot to tell them, but this was the message of the employees. So this is a very nice way how to peel any side of the engagement.
Yeah, definitely. I see we have great engagement here, by the way. Thank you so much for contributing. Maya, could I ask you now to, summarize and maybe go through also the answers from the audience?
Right. I think we are good. Was it work? Maybe now it's much better. So right, if I go through that, it's once the communication and changes. Obviously, communication is the right thing to tackle, and the reason is that that's something that I find very often to be sort of missing on the different elements. And I think you know it how it works. That usually key advice is to over communicate. The reason why was the motivation why you do things, why you move things forward, and making this message personal per role and eventually per person who are affected to that. So that's 100% sure. I'm reading Layoffs. I went through a couple of how's that called operational improvements. So I fully understand what that means. By the way, it's a nice segue to saying I see quite a lot of people, I would say, refusing to see how the new world will operate. Meaning, if I need 20 people for invoicing, maybe that's not the case anymore. And either I accept it or not. If I do accept it, then I offer some sort of requalification programs for the right people to move forward with that. So I would happy to see these. I would say experiences that you have. The one thing that I was gonna add, which is on my own, is a bit personal, which is you might know that I'm helping quite a lot of companies here in Central Europe to make sure that they are in a much better and economic shape. And it's just a couple of, I would say, years ago that I found out that it's actually me who fucks up things because I'm not talking to people at the right speed, meaning we had different frequency, because there could be, let's say companies that are operating in a certain mode and speed. And if you don't adjust yourself to their speed, basically the message is not going through, which to me was sort of aha moment. And I was surprised about understanding that much later than I should have. So that's really something that I was intrigued by.
Perfect. You can have a sit now because you would take worry through me. So thank you. I actually have one thing to add because when I was preparing for the panel, I talked to different people from different organizations who also went through change. And one point which resonated with me was that the people who are actually driving the change, they already live in it, for, several months before they can make it public. Because, sometimes there is a NDA, sometimes it's a business, you can't like spoil it, sometimes you just can't say it, but you already live it. So you have the phases. You have the chance to adapt, you have the chance to process it, you have the chance to think about it and already believe in it. But then when the change comes and you communicate it to people, you are already there, but they are not there. So just, keep that in mind that it comes along with what Marianne said, the speed is different. Just adjust and try to remember how it was when you were at the beginning, when you actually inherited news for the first time. And I think it's also helps sometimes, like maybe you can't already do it again, you already heard it, so you are not fresh in it. Or maybe you could start with like one person who you say the change and try to brainstorm and see, okay, how you feel, what should we do, and then lead it from there, because that at least you will have the same level as the before.
Yeah. And it reminds me of yet another fuck up, and thank you for mentioning that, Katka, which is, and it is true story. In a larger company, we successfully enabled Disneyland, I call it the new learning program for product and engineering managers in the organization, which was really great going through the meetups, the communities of practice, the conferences, whatever you can imagine. Nevertheless, after we published it, I was asking the CTO, so hey Mike, how are you gonna basically behave based on the new way of working and basically upskilling? And the reaction was, no, I don't need it. I'm already good. And you're like, you are the CTO, you are the person responsible for leading by example, and you say, nah, I don't need that. Which was like to me a sort of a quite hard wake-up moment to understand like what's going on. So that's yet another true example of what might be happening in reality. Yeah.
Perfect. We speak about the importance of the leadership in a change. You need to have a sort of island in the rough sea, someone you can lean to, and you have to trust that that person will give you the relevant information, and honest information. But it takes a lot to be that kind of leader. And I would like to dedicate this round to steering through the strategic shift and what does it take to guide through the constant change as a leader. Jiří, in your opinion, what do you think are, the qualities which the leader should have, and what does he need, to be able to do it?
Sure. So I would say, first of all, it needs to have a stomach for that, to really be able to survive it. But I would say also, that is what works for me, to really guide the team, no matter what size of the team you have, how you guide it as a leader through the change is, it will sound vague, but I will explain, through a culture. More or less every company, no matter what size in the company, usually have a culture, and usually it end up that you have, posters on the wall like teamwork, innovation, which, everybody ignores. And but what worked for me was kind of create something more explicit for, I'd say, subculture, which in ideal case is not in contradiction with the company culture, and to make it much more explicit and say, hey guys, for example, in our team, we are we embrace personal responsibility. It means that, for example, in my organization, if I embrace personal responsibility, I'm not gonna create like a board of architects which is gonna approve something, since then at the end of the day it's designed by committee and no one is responsible for anything. Vice versa, for example, if I embrace teamwork, I'm not gonna promote someone who might be brilliant but is asshole and is not team guy. So, but what I'm doing in my organization, I'm making this absolutely explicit. What are the values and how I'm measuring them. And then when you need this kind of transformation, you say, okay, guys, now there is the change, and then you can adjust the culture so it's transparent for everyone. What are the expectations, how they are changing, and for that is kind of, I would say, a little bit like island of stability.
Perfect. Vladimir, you yourself are a leader, but you also have amazing leaders in your team who actually lead the team through several acquisitions successfully. What are the 2, 3 competencies they have which you value the most?
I think, first of all, any leader or manager of team has to create a team which is performing. This is like a plain phrase. But I believe that the main factor which contributes to that is the trust within the team. And trust is everything. Because once trust is there, there is no hidden agenda, there is no topic which might be taboo, something like that. And if you manage to build this trust, then you can easily go through difficult situations. It doesn't need to be change like the acquisition or the digitalization or cloud or whatever. But this might be such a simple situation that my cost is a problem. We have to reduce the tax by 8%, and then what you are going to do? Typically the board will come and say X% for you and you. But sometimes, or quite often, the starting position of those managers is not the same. And this is a team where there's a trust, and I can, this is not present to tense. We did it a couple of times, so I can put a team. I told them, this is the task, or the reason is this, and this is obvious why we need to do this. And we all know that one of those demands, one such is, that's in the minor, so that others did the sponsoring something somehow. And there was a 20 minutes discussion, and I was just saying this deposit. So this is, I think, the main competence of any manager or leader to create such a team where the trust is in. And I think the leaders should be all tender. And then this is also something which creates the trust, and they should have very good emotional intelligence. These conditions are much more important than the classical IQ, and this is difficult. Mainly in the teams and these team leaders, typically very often the best programmer is gonna be the leader, which is not always the best option. and those guys feel not very comfortable in those personal situations and providing the feedback. And this is what I focus on very much with that project. There was some help with Ampu during this update.
Okay, perfect. I think that's also those engineering leaders community is all about, fostering the future leaders. So, Marianne, I will lead a question to you now. I think good leaders should also know how to delegate, and that sometimes, how to ensure to effectively delegate the responsibility and encourage the autonomy of the team.
Yeah, a good message. So regarding the delegation, the only thing maybe that I'm gonna say is that people laugh when you delegate over to them on their limits of what they are capable to do. And very often, I think that this is sort of underestimated, meaning like, let's make it sort of comfortable, let's make it work somehow. But you see how the people truly shine when they go to their limits and over their limits so that they grow. And that's something that I love seeing. Of course, what we need to pay attention to is to make sure that the critical things we are still close to the people that I delegated that over to, so that it doesn't go in a sort of a lost path or in a different way than expected. So that's to me the number one principle that I look forward when talking about delegation. Meaning, like, I love delegating things. Nevertheless, though, I would say if I delegate something over, then there is always the last sentence that I'm using, which is, of course, now it's yours, your piece, but I'm still here for you to help. So that's something that puts the balance back in order to make it work. And of course, again, if these things that I delegate are critical, that I'm paying close attention to make that work and to put that through. One thing to mention, sorry to make it too long, is if I see that it does not work to some degree, still my lesson learned is to keep that person in the loop and making sure that they move forward, as opposed to say, okay, Patrick, you are not the best person for it, so let's go for Tanyam or somebody else. Still go with the guy, with the person, and to make sure that you give them more of the care, more of the time dedicated to make it work, and that's the recipe for success.
Perfect. When you speak about pushing through the, below, like not just to stay in your comfort zone, you push through.
Slightly low.
Yeah. But it also, the leadership, it creates, anyway, the question will be for ML, so nobody's. I would like to talk about burnouts because, the leaders are a crucial part of the change, and especially not just the top leaders but mostly the B level, the people who face and who sometimes not actually love the change but have been told from the top, and they have to adapt it, they have to go through it, they have to lead you through it, and who cares about them, right? And Vladimir mentioned that he tries to support the leaders, but ML, what in your practice is great tactic or initiative to avoid the leaders burnout in the way?
Well, I can say that it was one of my hiccups too, but then I actually burned out almost. So I experienced it, not nice. And it was exactly when things got really tough and a lot had to be done. And I tried to be generally a hands-on manager and try to really know about what my people do so that I can be there for them. I can understand. So I'm not just someone that, meets them once a while for one-to-one and just, okay, tell me what you work on. But like I can really be in it with them. But I didn't actually know the limit, and I just stretched myself too thin of trying to save them, make them feel okay. Me trying to juggle the responsibilities and extra requirements that were coming from the top, and so yeah, not nice. The tip that I can give, or how I kind of try to find my way out of it, just set boundaries. If there are too many things on the plate, phase them out. cut it. You don't eat the whole pizza. You cut it in pieces. You eat one by one. So really, just sitting down with your team, saying what are the most burning things, what we can do, what is maybe smaller, faster thing we can do right away, and then we can focus on the more complex things, and just really kind of help them see through it, because sometimes just having the big piece on the table is overwhelming on its own, but when they see the path through it, it's much easily digestible. It's has a calming effect. At the same time, protect the personal time too. So I advise my team, put your munches, put your, I don't know, brave, whatever, put it on the calendar and be diligent. Don't try to, if someone chats you on Teams or other platforms, just don't reply if you already are in that phase, because it's not gonna help. You'll be distracted, you'll make mistake, and it just doesn't help anybody. And yeah, generally, the last kind of advice I would give is also trust your people in the way that they are the experts. You hired them because they demonstrated certain knowledge, certain know how, so trust them. You may not have all the answers, but giving them the power that they come up with a solution, tell me how we can do it, oftentimes also helps. That's it's kind of a bit twisted way how to embrace the change by kind of actually doing and guiding me through it versus the other way around.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I would like to also go now through some Q&A from the audience. It's actually great. The first question was also on my mind. Jiří, can you maybe answer that? What if you disagree with change? How do you explain it to the people?
I would say to some extent I have the luxury of the board. I have the luxury that and in most of the cases now when and the one who is shaping change. But but in the past, if it was really like there is a famous I would just say disagree or commit, and I have no problem with that. But if there was something like fundamental disagreement came, what I am supposed to do, I simply quit. I just call it on the job.
Vladimir, you mentioned the situation with e-mobile. Was a little bit probably. Can you comment on that? Like, how did you call?
I don't know as much as this is also the case. But actually, once it happened, that I also quit all the companies I was working for because I simply was not compatible with what they were standing for. But in some cases, as I mentioned before, sometimes it's possible to actually transform or translate this change which is coming from above to something more meaningful, which people understand and can stand for.
So you're saying if you don't agree with it at first, try to find the meaning behind it to make yourself comfortable with it.
The first thing is that I try to negotiate to try to understand what is behind that. If I'm not successful, which is in most of the cases, then I try to somehow transform it into some digestible, meaning to life in this year.
Like, you cannot quit every half year, right? So,
Yeah, I get some moments.
all right, thank you so much. I think next question would be great for NL. Have you lead change remotely? You mentioned that there was a outsourcing to India, so I guess you have.
Well, that one actually was not remotely. We were actually present in the offices, and afterwards, when all the work was prepared, I was sent to Bangalore for 8 months. So I just spent on site, trying to help with the other colleagues drive and lead the change and make them take over our jobs, basically. So that one not, but in place effects, all the changes that happened were remote. We were remote from day one. So basically, COVID and all the kind of stuff didn't really change in the way how we operate. But yeah, I did. And I think to an extent, of course, you can't replace the face to face and kind of the care. But I believe that you can do it also remotely if you really just, dedicate the time, if you spend time with the people, because you still have the screen, you still can talk to them. So it really just shouldn't be a burden.
Okay, great. I will not answer the third question because it's right the next slide. We will talk about how to, measure if the change is successful. But I would like to give you chance, I myself don't like Slido that much to write because I'm not a typing person. So if you want to ask, just raise your hand. I will give you the mic. This community is all about typing. Okay, then.
Thank you. My name is Helena, and I have a question. So let's imagine a situation that you need to go through the restructuring. Basically, you need to make layoffs, business case is ready, you know roles, you know what teams are impacted, how many people. You don't know specific names in full yet. You still need to go through this labor office, work union process, which will take maybe 3-4 months, but you know that it's happening. How do you handle communication with the team? Option one, absolute transparency. You are saying that it's coming and people will be impacted in 4, 5, 6 months, but you don't know exact names yet. Or option two, you wait for whole process to be completed with laboratories, working and it's those people is ready and then you notify. But then you don't know all details. And at the time being, like people that they take life decisions, taking mortgages, sending kids to study abroad and so on.
Okay, so who would like to take that?
I can maybe share a few things. I think that it really depends on the context. It depends on the size of the company, and also I would say it depends on, for example, the country. For example, I've done several layoffs in Netherlands, and usually there there is a lot of negotiation with the unions, but also you don't want to have this leaked since they had very, I have to say it, very human labor laws. And for example, if the employee is gonna find out that they might be layoffs, and it happened to me a few times, they can go to his doctor and say, okay, I am stressed that I might affected. And then there are 2 years on medical leave, and you as a company need to pay them for head 70% of their salary for the next years.
Yeah, I have.
So it really depends, where you are and what's your context. I would say usually in the smaller companies which we have, we usually don't do it. It's usually will happen, and usually it's just like one-time thing, and you hope that you people eat it. When I was with SAR, it was just publicly announced. You guys, it's gonna happen. It will take us 2-3 months. Yeah, there will be cuts, 10%. Also, if you are with the company, usually you will announce it because of the reports to Wall Street.
Yeah, thank you. Vladimir, you mentioned actually that you had similar situation with the acquiring bank. Can you add to that?
I've met such a situations unfortunately in my life, and that the first one was when I was in Motorola, which was at the end of the 90s. And this was the time when the mobile had actually been built, and suddenly I went better completed, so we had to reduce. And my initial approach or default approach is to be 100% transparent if possible, because it's not first percent. It's a big special deal. And in Agile Motorola, so like one quote, I got a call from my American manager sitting in Germany that I'm supposed to reduce my staff by 40% for zero. But it was my actual decision, of who I decided to lay off, which was kind of the advantage. But at the time, it was quite easy from the point of view that everybody somehow expected this situation, because it was obvious that one day then it never had to be more is done, and then the boards would just stop going. So this wasn't so difficult, and we are talking about the individual layoffs because of some particular reasons. I'm always very open to this part.
Okay, perfect. We will just go through one more question, and then we will move on, and then we will have chance for Q&A later on as well. How to keep people engaged when change takes a long time and people are tired? Had you have change which was taking longer than expected? And Marianne, have you seen any of that?
Right. So keeping people still, I would say, emotionally on track and empathize for the change, even though it might be long. I mean, like, there's nothing more practical than splitting the thing into a couple of, but I would say milestone initiatives that will help you move forward, and still accomplishing, I would say, the increments on the way to go. So that to me worked the most. On the other hand, there is one thing that I really learned to avoid, which is to wait for 100% consensus while doing the change. Because if you do that and you expect everybody and every person or 100% of people to be fine with the change and to argue with that about the details, then basically I find that this is due because like things don't go as fast as expected. So my advice would be expect there will be some, how would I put it, trash kind to pay. Again, it's part of the journey. So that would be my answer. Yeah.
All right. Keep motivated to ask. We will go through another slide or later on. But let's now answer the question about how to evaluate it because we have the whole slide about it. Round 5 is about no, it's actually sorry, it disappeared. Yeah. How do we measure the success and impact? I see I have a mistake on the number, so I confuse myself. But let's just talk about measurement. How do we evaluate that we are succeeding in the change? That what we started and where we are is where we want to be. So, what are the Vladimir mentioned you had KPIs. When it comes as your personal KPIs, but what indicators? What are the metrics which you are following to be sure you are on track?
And obviously depends on the nature of the change. If I take our Agile endeavor, on one side we have all these technical KPIs, like I don't know, number of tests which are being done automatically and these kind of things. On the other side, I mean, there's this way of working, and you have to really ensure this is something you can observe that, I mean, the change is permanent or irreversible, and you have to be simple in touch with the teams and just observe it and then asking the questions. I mean, why you don't why you do these things in the software or the other way. So let's be very close to it. And also, I mean, having the job not because we like it and not there's a good expectations. So there's a always get the time to market. But we also, as a bank, not to grow because we're saying they're the smallest from the biggest. And we some of us system in front of us, we some are doing this what we call time to market or speed up the delivery of the software to this growth and how this is then together and or does it contribute? That does the fact that you very faster contribute to growth, yes or no? It's not so easy to evaluate. But as regards the culture changes side, it's not simple. So you can measure engagement, employee NPS, and this kind of thing. But this is only indication. So in any case, you have to go to the teams and you have some focus discussions or focus groups or whatever, just to understand the details. So you simply ask for feedback. About best feedback again is on a face-to-face. I mean, we can send the questionnaires, but if the people are honest, they'll tell you. So you have to combine various methods.
And can you give us a specific example from one of the change? You mentioned questionnaire. So have you sent anything? Like, can you be specific? Like, what did you measure? What were the questions?
Here, typically, as in many other companies, we are running this kind of engagement survey. I think how is 3 times a year, which is an indication that you get some figures. But the best thing on this is to read those comments because I mean, many people provide some comments and you have to go through it. You have to read it, and this is the kind of a biggest value of this. And then again, for instance, I'm having a phone meetings with my colleagues on the board, and I'll ask Ian, and what do I think about this? And everybody, CFO, chief of the risk and so on. And this is also very predictable. Trying to talk to the sons from retail, for instance. Simply, I need to have a network of the trusted people who might ensure that they're interacting with the right feeder.
Great, thank you. Easy? you have been through lots of, pick one, for example, and be specific. Like, what did you measure? How did you know it was successful or wasn't successful?
To be honest, I'm very skeptical that this can be measured. And again, luckily I'm in much smaller companies, but just to give you an example, for example, right now AI, is everywhere. So what I, for example, seen in one company, one of my colleagues is that, okay, we need to prove that, we are leveraging AI. So they had, for example, metric that, in Jira for every feature, there was a checkbox if it's leveraging AI. So of course, what is going to happen, people will get well. Just say, for example, right now there is a big buzz about improving like the velocity or developers' productivity through characters. You mentioned it too. So back in April, I was back in Silicon Valley, and I went for a year with one guy who I know from Sun now. He's in front of one from the most iconic companies over there. The company is investing billions and billions of dollars into AI. And he said, we are burning out of cash, and it's electricity, it's NVIDIA chips, everything, and we need to beat our numbers. So we laid off 10% of our developers, to make it look good. We said that, the rest of the developers are 10% more productive because of AI tooling, but it's just marketing mix. And I'm afraid that, a lot of those like hard numbers are related to bullshit. More or less, for example, in the company, now it's really my topic. I am really interested in velocity of developers, but right now I was even approached to talk to few startups, AI startups, who are just their only business mission is if they can measure developer velocity. And again, most of it is just a smoke and mirrors. Since again, even if you are trying to implement some harder number, like stupid example, number of line of codes, again, you can gamble it by zero. So for me, how I'm measuring, I would say success is, first of all, I would say my intuition. To some extent is the self-reported metrics. Like, for example, for me, still the biggest or the best metric for the developer productivity is more or less their self-reported number or feeling and more productive or less. But I would say I'm much more focused, or I'd say my mission in most of the companies, or even this one is kind of digital. So it's either, to make sure that the company is gonna survive or make it to IPO, or, is gonna grow the revenue. And for me, the transformation is just the tool. So I'm not measuring, how the tool is working, but what's the end result.
Perfect. It's great when it's about numbers, business impact. It's hard to measure it, but you can come up with numbers. But what you can't really measure is the people feelings. And now, do you have any tactics how to recognize the shift in the behavior of the people, or how you have the feeling that, like, okay, I have changed their minds, like it's going that way, it's there.
I'm being easily by seeing them curious, by asking quality questions, not just, okay, so what is it about? Like really detailed question that it shows that they thought about it and they're just willing to understand more. That they're engaged, that I don't know, if we give an example that we implemented a new tool, that they are actually using it, that they, come to you with ideas. Hey, I was trying to do this, but it didn't let me. How about if we, raise an improvement, or I don't know. So it's really like as detailed as they are and engaged, that proves that they really are sitting in it, viewing it, and are thinking about it. So I would say that. Perfect.
Should this is that is emotional intelligence. You should, as a manager, should be able to recognize this.
Exactly. Mariali mentioned that you actually go through companies in Cyprian Europe and you help with the productivity and, to shift them through the change of mindset and to boost the production, let's say. But if you don't have the hard numbers only, what else do you measure?
Well,
I think I'm very much aligned with what Jurka was saying as well. And to me, contradictory, I do rely on numbers and metrics and indicators. The trick is that we shouldn't be measuring idiotic indicators. Having said that, of course, the lines of code does not relate. Having said that, if you build your efficiency metrics on number of story points, who the hell is using storyboards these days? And now why to base your efficiency on estimates? Like, it doesn't make absolute no sense. Same goes with agile transformations about saying so the time to value are shortened. I don't really care, to be honest, because to me it's just a stupid metrics. Because by running faster, it doesn't mean that we will end up being more efficient or more productive. So in the other day, what you want to measure is a sort of outcome-oriented metrics. That's to be very specific. I want to see how much of the new functionality landed successfully with the new customer based on their feedback. Is it like 50%, 40%? Is it 80%? Now you talk my, right? So these are the right numbers that you want to go through, and the others might be indicators. But if you stay only on output metrics, then of course I fully agree with you. It will end up being sort of tracked and gamified. I had a very good experience or the practical situation of if you are forcing people to make sure that they are capable to implement ethics or some sort of product increments, I would say in 3 weeks on average, they will make it. They will just move the Jira tickets from one stage to another. And of course, they will end up having a gamified situation with no tune-uppers, and people will basically misuse it. And yes, all the guys will get bonuses because the metric says so, right? So if you are using, again, sorry for that to repeat that, but using stupid indicators, you end up being stupid yourself. That will be my message.
Yeah, I think one point from the HR perspective is also how how the outside world see your company, because like we focus on how it's seen internally and what you see as outcomes, but also I'm a interested guest in my podcast lately, and she said for her the success was when she actually came to the community meetup and she heard the people say, "Oh, you were there. I heard it improved." And because people talk over the beer, people talk, like share it in this discuss forums and stuff. So I think it's also important to measure not only what's communicated inside, but how people and how other communities talk about what's going on in your company. So because of course this will be the next question, and next round is about engagement, connecting with people internally and externally, and we cover a little bit of that with the Q&A, but I think it still deserves a little bit deeper conversation. So I would like to now ask you panelists to share your experience. Vladimir, how do you in Raiffeisenbank communicate the change from the top to bottom? You have a process for that?
I think the process is not important. And I frankly speaking, it very much depends where the change is happening. So on different managers have different habits. So I communicate the change many back in a different way than in other parts of the bank. And I try not to behave like example I described in T-Mobile. So for instance, I take this Agile stuff, which is a big thing for us because we even changed our live organization stuff from the 1st of March. That actually we started to communicate or talk to the people even before the change was actually fully designed. So everybody knew that you need to do some changes in the organization. So once we had a Thursday after August last year, we just came to the wider management community from my step tool, and this is the result, this is the concept, and most likely this will look like this. And he got questions, comments, and he went informing the people actually on a bi-weekly basis, which I believe was one of the reasons why we didn't face any social progress. Because, for instance, we took all the application administrators and put them to the side, so they will not sit on the same floor as they were used to sit for the last 15 years. And this was the breach we were you're afraid of a lot, but at the end of the day, this was so brilliant. And I think this frequent coordination was one of the reasons why it was quite successful.
What channels do you use for the communication? I mean, it's you are not like 50 company, you are more like hundreds or thousands when it comes to the whole company. So what channels is working best for you?
Um, as many as possible, obviously. I don't know, for instance, I don't like sending emails to the people. So what I do on a monthly basis, approximately, this is called like breakfast with CIO or that. And this is now, hybrid thing. So it's broadcasted. So like, stand in front of the camera. Some people are here. Just saying that almost going on as QI to the police side is employed. And we are more sure activities like this, called like Inspection Fridays, typically we talk about some technical things, but not only that. And every Monday I run into the meeting with my D-1s and D-2s as well, because this is the most important area maybe, because those are the guys influencing the people in the team. And on this meeting, there's an open discussion about all these topics.
Okay, perfect. Easy. Can you share your strategy?
I will be honest, it's not from top of my head. It's a framework I learned when I was at work in Philadelphia, but it works, at least for me. So the first step for me is, it's called sense of urgency. And more or less, usually the framework from today is like why and then how. But you are reframing the why that way that it's not like, we need to change to be faster or whatever. It's more like if we don't change, we are going to hit the wall. So you are more or less making non-negotiable, we need to change, which is like different framing of the problem. So this is the first step, how you frame the problem. The second thing, or the second step, which works for me is not to communicate then directly to the team or the organization, but identify the key stakeholders in my organization. It can be, of course, my direct reports, but also any other key people in the organization, like architects or any other opinion makers. And more or less, I battle on with them and create kind of coalition, so we are all on the same page. And then the third step is really to do all hands on whatever you need, to really communicate it to everyone. If the team is big enough that you are not able to have one-on-one with, all of them. And when you present this, you also present it, with some, background material, stories, and also the next steps, what's gonna happen. And then you are more in the execution mode, where you don't need to just rely that you are the only one in your organization communicating the change, but you have also the people on the ground, who are gonna support you and also help you, to get to the next step, to the
Perfect. And now, how do you ensure that when the change is not going in the whole company? Because sometimes there is transformation which transparent involve everyone in the company, but sometimes it's just like one product unit or. So how do you ensure that all the people who needs to be involved are involved and are in line with what's going on?
It depends on the change, right? But I would definitely what I used to do is identify people that I can trust, that they know about the sensitivity of the information, so that I can spread it. Kind of, it's not only on my back, but we can together trying to influence the others. If it's a small scale, then it's quite easy. You just really, again, the gentleman mentioned the direct communication. You just sit down, talk through them. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if like it's satisfactory answer, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. What was the most, I will give you follow-up one, Brian. What was the most difficult communication challenge which you had in your career, and how did you solve it?
Well, that was when I had to obviously lay off person. But the person apparently had some medical issues which we haven't encountered before, and basically the person started spent with us about a week, but I started seeing, or hearing feedback from everyone who got in touch with the person that something's off, that they don't feel comfortable interacting with the person and even talking. And we didn't encounter it at the interview, mainly because it was also remote, and because at the interview we were very focused on the skills and really like going through the hard things. So there the person excelled, but then it was really difficult as a human being to really interact with the team, and I could sense the team's kind of atmosphere and kind of the harmony of the team just went down. Uh, Suddenly, everyone was kind of closing their chest, not sharing that much. Team meetings were just kind of weird. And so, yeah, I basically just collected feedback from everyone and just said, look, I want all of us to be fine. We need to work in symbiosis. We cannot, let things kind of derail us. Tell me what is it so that I can fix it. And thankfully, the team was very open. They told me what they experienced, and yeah, then I just had to execute that.
Perfect. As I see the time is running fast, so I would like to move to the wrap up. And every one of you, please, Marianne will start because you didn't get a word last round. What is your one actionable takeaways for leaders which they can just, if you guys leave today and we ask you like, what did you take from today's session? Please pay attention. What it would be, Marianne.
It has to be the only one. And so my message would be not to repeat the previous ones. If you are in the change or are part of the change, make sure that if the change is large, you have that is the only change that you're responsible for. Because usually I see that people have too many changes at their enemy and many things being delegated, and that's the recipe for failure, for the burnout that's been mentioned, for other potential situations that you don't want to encounter. So basically, ask a manager for what is the one single thing that is the most important, deliver on that, and move on to the other one. Don't do many things in parallel.
Perfect. Yuri, same question.
Yeah, for me, I would say the most important thing for the leader is to be still connected with the reality. And the bigger organization you have, that it's harder since I'm not sure if you all know the old TV series Dr. House. He was saying every patient is lying. And if you have, for example, the current job, I have like 4 layers under me. So imagine the IC like to some extent to his manager, then the manager to senior manager to director, and then the director to me. So then I'm totally, and we are able first company. So which can mean that what's happening in reality on the ground, I have absolutely no clue about. So more or less, I think that it's really important for you not to micromanage, but be present. And for example, if you are doing a transformation that you need to transfer the product to be more like developer friendly, you need to be the one who is also gonna try the SDK. If you are doing, I don't know, freemium, you should go once a week, to the freemium and you to try on yourself. If you are changing something, for example, in the infrastructure, you should maybe just go to the terminal and what's happening, with the Kubernetes or etc. You really need to know what's happening and find your ways, how you are able to keep things under control. And in the same way, you will also show to the team that you care. It's not a micromanagement, that you really have the passion and care what they are doing. It's not just like a lane-based management. You are just getting set status reports that everything is fine, but it's like Chernobyl, everything is burning, but it's not great, but very poison.
Okay, it's interesting because Vladimir was saying you should trust your people, and you're saying you should assume everyone is lying.
I think that it's contradicting each other.
All right, Vladimir, what would be your one piece of advice?
My only recommendation would be invest to your team, because this is the best investment you can do in a professional life, because without a team, you'll miss the money.
Perfect. And last but not least, NL.
I would say be careful who you pick for the leader. So even at the interview, start with that, because it all comes down to people, and it all comes down to right people in the right place. So yeah, make sure that you actually pick a good leader that has the qualities.
Perfect. So let's go through a Q&A as we have a couple of interesting questions. So I like the one from Zora. How do you ensure that change can rise from the bottom and you don't miss on these good ideas? And that's one of the things which was mentioned on the slide before when we were saying what are the biggest fuck ups was that the people who were actually not involved or asked for opinions or ideas. And I think it's actually crucial because if the people can contribute on that, they will actually adapt much easier. So who would like to answer that? ML, I see you are nodding your head. So
Yeah, as a leader, it should be your responsibility to, if you are having a change that comes from the top, that you actually say, hey, let's pause, guys. I have this person that's doing the job, or I have this expert. Let's talk to them. Let's find out what it entails before we make a decision. Because yeah, otherwise from the bottom just will never be surplus.
I remember, Vladimir, one of your colleagues was telling me in the podcast that actually the change didn't come from the bottom. It was told from RBI, but because they had the trust and they actually went kind of like a rebel and they went with it was about the workload, what they need. And the RBI was saying you need like 10 times higher workload for the cloud or something like that. And they said, no, it's okay. We actually don't need to buy all those things. We can do it with less hardware. And they trust their guts, they trust themselves, and they did it. And I think because of that, it kind of felt like, we are part of the change and we can actually even come up with our ideas. Is that what helps in Raiffeisenbank?
I think it helps everywhere. I mean, if people feel this is their change or this is their they did and this is it.
So do you encourage your people to rebel through the mother a little bit, in sort of way?
I did not need to encourage them. They do.
All right. So what does skill adaptability means for you and how do you train yourself or others in adaptability? Marianne, would you like to answer that?
Yes, coming back to, for example, the example of moving from product owner or project manager to the true project manager person. This might be a very specific thing where you might be saying to the people in your organization that we are changing the way how we work. That's one of the things. But of course, my statement would be if you give the right chance to the right people, I mean to all the people in the area, making sure that you equip them with the right potential and the right ammunition to move through the change, and making sure that they land successfully, that you provided all the different ammunition to make that work, then I think you end up having no remorses, nothing to worry about, and just helping people to go through it as opposed just to say, yes, but now you have to change the way how we work. It never, you never get, and I'm gonna end up successful like that. So that would be my approach. Yeah.
Perfect. There has been quite a trend couple of, years ago when people were changing the management, basically canceling the management. Like Visos was making like bossless R&D, for example. There's lots of people who have self-managed teams. Yeah, some of them in the audience as well. Lots of people think that when they involve people from the bottom in management decisions, that it helps, that it shows the trust. Yuri, what do you think about that? Does it have future, the self-managed teams and companies? And do you believe in that?
I cannot, if you start a company from the zero with this mindset, I cannot, it can work and probably to some extent scale. But to be honest, I don't have any direct experience with that.
Does anyone of you have?
Yeah, what I sometimes see is that it really depends on the culture, and I would be very careful about. An example of that is, yeah. So from now on, our teams are autonomous. Yeah, thank you for saying that. And it doesn't work by saying these sort of words. You have to act upon it. So that would be one of the things that I would want to mention. The other thing is that maybe I'm not too much direct, but the thing is that in some companies, there are still people who are going to be, I think the right word is bitching about how the things work and why we will never be successful and so on and so forth. So, of course, if you have the capacity to keep these people on board, then something might end up being wrong and you're never going to end up having your team fully autonomous or basically with no management because these people do need the managers so that they have somebody to pull you. That's super.
That's what I wanted to say because, you need a common enemy, and I'm not saying that the leaders should be the enemies, but it is like then when you have more kids, right? Like when they fight together and you just come and you give shit to both of them. At the end of the day, they unite against you. And I think it's a little bit similar because like when you have someone on the top to blame, it's easier than when you have to blame yourself because it's your collective decision. But that's just my, personal opinions. Sorry. Do we have any more questions? Anyone want to ask? I'm happy to hand over the mic. No? Are you still typing? Is anyone still typing? No. All right, because guys, if you don't have any more questions, we have networking to do.